Welcome back. I'm so thrilled you're here for today's explainer. Look, if you've ever stared out at your yard and just felt completely overwhelmed, or maybe you've spent entire weekends digging and planting, only to end up with a garden that looks kind of like, well, a messy botanical crime scene? Don't worry, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're opening up the Pro's Playbook to master garden design and maintenance. And the best part, we're going to do it without breaking the bank. We'll be using the exact same structural secrets the pros use to create spaces that look completely intentional and absolutely stunning.
So let me ask you this right out of the gate. Why is it that some gardens look incredibly professional while others just look accidental? You know the ones I'm talking about, right? You see these yards packed with expensive plants that somehow just look like a cluttered collection of random decisions. And then you compare them to the yards that instantly feel calming, cohesive, and perfectly put together. So what's the actual difference here?
Well, here's the empowering truth, and honestly the core thesis of this entire explainer. It is not your budget, it's your strategy. A great garden seriously doesn't require a massive bank account. Smart, structural decisions matter way more than how much cash you drop at the local garden center. Seriously, if you know the rules of visual geometry and how plants actually behave, you can take a virtually free transformation and make it look like $1,000,000. All right, here's the roadmap for today. First, the designer's secret blueprint. Second, building a healthy foundation. Third, the art of planting. Fourth, plant once, enjoy forever. And finally, number 5, avoiding hydrangea heartbreak.
Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, the designer's secret blueprint. We're talking high-impact, low-cost geometry.
So, designers use this brilliant little concept called the backdrop effect. Think about it. Most people have a standard brown or maybe a weathered gray fence. It just kind of blends in, and green plants against it end up looking muddy, or they just completely disappear. But what if you paint that fence near black, or maybe a dark charcoal, or a deep navy? Literally everything changes. The contrast makes the greens look incredibly vibrant, and the flowers just pop right out at you. Plus, here's a fun fact. Dark colors visually recede. That means a dark fence actually seems to disappear into the background. So if you have a small garden, this trick creates this amazing illusion that the space just keeps going past the boundary, making your yard feel significantly larger.
Moving on, our next secret is incredibly simple, but I promise it changes everything. It's the number 3. Whether you're at the store buying plants or you're out back arranging pots, you've got to start thinking in odd numbers. And actually, a quick side note while we're talking about pots, never ever leave them sitting flat on the ground. Lift them up on pot risers. Even just a couple of stacked bricks will do. It gives them presence. Group them in 3s at different heights. But wait, why is the number 3 so magical anyway?
Well, there's actually some really fascinating visual psychology at play here. You see, our brains tend to read even numbers, like 2, 4, 6, as stiff, formal, and heavily arranged. But odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, they read as natural and sweeping. When you plant 3 of the exact same plant together, your brain registers it as a drift, like this beautiful natural sweep of color. On the flip side, if you scatter 1 each of 3 totally different plants, it just reads as visual noise. It's messy. So the crucial takeaway here, apply this rule of odds to literally everything you do out in the yard.
Now, let's talk about what happens when the sun goes down. Your garden definitely shouldn't turn into a giant black void. But hey, you also don't need to hire some expensive electrician for a massive lighting scheme. The designer secret here is to illuminate just one single focal point. Think like a highly textured tree trunk or a really cool architectural shrub. Just use a single, low-wattage spike light and angle it upward. And pay close attention to this because it's absolutely crucial. Always use a warm 2700 Kelvin bulb. Cool, bright, white lights, yeah, they'll make your lovely yard look like a supermarket parking lot. But that warm 2700 Kelvin light, it creates instant magical depth.
Of course, none of this beautiful geometry matters if your yard is all fuzzy around the edges. You really need proper tools for clean lines. Honestly, the single most impactful, totally free thing you can do is use a half-moon edging iron to cut a sharp, vertical line right where your lawn meets the garden bed. It immediately signals to the brain, hey, someone is in control here. For the heavier lifting, the pros swear by a tool called a sharpshooter. It's basically this heavy digging bar and shovel hybrid that is absolutely perfect for busting through stubborn roots. And finally, make sure you use consistent hard materials throughout your space. So instead of buying 12 totally random mismatched pots over the years, just pick one style, like simple terracotta for example, and repeat it everywhere. It completely ties the whole visual story together.
All right, moving on to Section 2, building a healthy foundation. Let's talk soil, water, and weeds.
Let's get into weed defense. The pros rely on 3 very specific tactics to keep their beds pristine. Step 1, dig a slight trench edge around the bed. This creates a literal physical barrier that stops those super aggressive warm season grasses like Bermuda grass dead in their tracks. Step 2, apply a really thick top dressing of pine straw or mulch. This naturally suppresses weeds and it protects all the beneficial biology happening down in your soil. And step 3, look, if you do get pests, the key is to build up your soil health so beneficial nematodes can thrive. Or you can target the bad bugs with organic controls like BT or spinosad. These handle the problem effectively while still protecting the environment.
Okay, we need to have a massive stop doing this moment. If you're out there doing a quick sprinkle with the hose every single day, you are actually creating vulnerable, shallow, surface-level roots. And those roots, they're going to wilt the absolute second it gets hot outside. You really need to stop doing that immediately. Instead, shift your strategy to deep, infrequent watering. If you let a soaker hose run for a long period, just a couple of times a week, you're literally training those roots to reach deep down into the earth. And that is exactly how you create resilient, drought-resistant plants.
That brings us to Section 3, the art of planting. We're focusing on structure and layers.
If your garden borders are looking a bit flat, you're probably ignoring the layering rule. And it's beautifully simple, really. Tall plants in the back, medium plants in the middle, and low plants down in the front. You might have heard designers call this the thriller, filler, spiller method when they're talking about pots. When you layer things this way, you're building a physical hierarchy. It means you can actually see every single plant from the front, nothing feels crowded, and your eye naturally moves through the space in 3 dimensions. It's a real game changer.
And please, just like a professional landscaper with 47 years of experience begged us in one of our sources, stop clubbing your plants into submission. I mean it. When you hack your shrubs into these stiff little cubes and rectangles with aggressive heading cuts, you're stripping them of literally everything that makes them special. You really want to embrace their natural forms. Instead, use selective thinning cuts. That means reaching deep into the plant and snipping a branch right off at the base. It opens up the airflow, gently controls the size, and most importantly, it lets the plant actually look like the beautiful living thing it naturally is.
Moving right along to Section 4, plant once, enjoy forever. Let's look at 5 incredibly tough perennials.
So, here are 5 virtually indestructible perennials that will do all the heavy lifting for you. They'll come back year after year, and honestly, they only need maybe 15 minutes of care a week. First up, lavender. This stuff absolutely laughs at heat and drought, and it'll attract basically every pollinator in your neighborhood. Second, coneflower, also known as echinacea. These give you bold, tough, daisy-like blooms, and they tolerate heavy clay soil like an absolute champion. Third on the list, black-eyed Susans. These are super cheerful self-seeders that make perfect companions for those coneflowers. Fourth, we have hostas. These are the undisputed architectural kings of the shade garden. They'll thrive in spots where absolutely nothing else will grow. And finally, daylilies. These are incredibly forgiving, endless bloomers that will survive pretty much total neglect. Seriously, plant these, get them established, and your garden will practically manage itself.
And finally, Section 5, Hydrangea Heartbreak. Time to master a misunderstood classic.
Okay, if you've ever stared at a perfectly healthy, big green hydrangea bush that just refuses to produce a single flower, well, you probably violated the golden pruning rule. You simply have to know what type of hydrangea you're dealing with. See, big leaf and oak leaf hydrangeas bloom on what's called old wood. That means their buds actually formed the year before. So if you go out and prune them in the spring, you are literally snipping off all your future flowers. You have to prune those immediately after their summer flowering. Now, panicle and smooth hydrangeas, those bloom on new wood. That means you can safely prune them in late winter or early spring without any worry. But get this wrong and, yep, you lose an entire year's worth of gorgeous blooms.
Now get ready for a piece of absolute garden magic. Did you know you can literally change the color of big leaf hydrangeas just by tweaking the dirt around them? It's true. Testing your soil pH tells you what color your blooms will be. If your soil is acidic, so a pH below 6, those blooms are going to turn a brilliant, vibrant blue. But if you have alkaline soil with a pH above 7, you're going to get these stunning bubblegum pink blooms. By just adding a bit of garden lime or aluminum sulfate, you essentially become the artist, totally in control of the exact color palette of your landscape.
So to guarantee those jaw-dropping, literally traffic-stopping hydrangea blossoms, just stick to these core best practices. First, location is absolutely everything. They want that perfect sweet spot. Morning sun followed by afternoon shade. Next, planting depth is critical. You've got to plant the crown completely flush with the ground level. Never bury it deep or the whole thing will just rot. For spacing, give them a good 3 to 10 feet of breathing room. They need that airflow to fight off mildew. And lastly, food. Skip the heavy nitrogen lawn food. Instead, use a balanced, slow-release fertilizer. That ensures you actually get beautiful flowers rather than just a bush full of giant green leaves.
Which brings us to the ultimate question you really have to ask yourself the next time you look out at your yard. Are you working for your garden, or is your garden working for you? Think about it. By using clean, sharp edges, strategic geometry, smart layering, and a handful of bulletproof plants, you can take total control of your landscape. Again, you don't need a huge budget for this. You just need the pro's playbook. I really hope this explainer has empowered you to step outside and start transforming your own space this weekend. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll catch you next time.